We're having restrictions on foreign money coming in. We're going to put on term limits. We're doing a lot of things to clean up the system. But everybody that works for government, they then leave government and they become a lobbyist. They know the system right now. But we're going to phase that out. You have to phase it out.
President-elect Trump promising to drain the swamp as soon as he takes office, and that begins with picking his cabinet. And he just announced yesterday, Reince Priebus as his chief of staff and Steve Bannon as his senior counselor. So how can he reach across the aisle with the rest of his cabinet picks? Here to weigh in, Ryan Girdusky from Red Alert Politics and Democratic strategist Atima Omara. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
Atima, I'll start with you. Two names announced yesterday. What do you think?
Well, Reince Priebus wasn't entirely a surprise, and I think just from me being a Democrat, I think it's actually a good thing for Trump to have picked Reince. He knows party politics very well, knows a lot of people across the aisle. Steve Bannon was, quite frankly, not surprising for him, given that he'd run his campaign, but rather shocking in sort of the work that Bannon has supported through Breitbart.com, which he himself has called a platform for the alt-right. On a website calls the Confederate flag glorious heritage, and has promoted the birtherism lie. So he's a lot more divisive. Quite frankly, he's aligned with white nationalist views. And so if Trump's trying to build a cabinet that is kind of reaching across the aisle, he should identify folks who can do that in the same way that Obama did with having Republicans in his cabinet.
All right. Well, some people would disagree with you on some of the characterizations of Bannon. Ryan, what do you think?
I think that there's certainly room for him to grow and room for him to find common ground with Democrats. I think that certainly one thing that he could possibly do is look to bring Democrats into his cabinet. He could look at a congresswoman like Tulsi Gabbard, who endorsed Bernie in the primary, but is very good on veterans issues, very good on foreign policy, is against nation building, just like Trump is. And I think that there's also other people like Eva Morowitz, who is a New York Democrat, who she has supported things like school choice and school vouchers, and I think that that's something that could possibly be very, very good for Trump.
Let's take a look at what Donald Trump himself, the president-elect, had to say. Mr. Trump said this, quote, highly qualified leaders who worked well together, this being Reince Priebus and Steve Bannon he's speaking on, and our campaign, and led us to a historic victory. Now I will have them both with me in the White House as we work to make America great again. And Atima, Kellyanne Conway was on yesterday, and she said in reference to Steve Bannon that he's misunderstood, that he was also a former naval officer, also a managing partner with Goldman Sachs. Do you think that this was clearly an indication of Donald Trump trying to reach out to, some of the voters, some of their views, and then also with specifically Reince Priebus being able to get along maybe a little bit more with, Congress?
Yeah, I mean, I think Reince is totally in the line of being able to work within Washington, knowing Washington well, and specifically the party and party politics and all the players. I think that Bannon is obviously a pick that appeals to an element of support that came through Breitbart.com and that side. I mean, it's funny because there's even conservative leaders who, during the primary, very much criticize, Breitbart's views, and specifically by extension, Bannon, who again, said, our website is definitely a platform for the alt-right, and some of those more very.
But he also received support from, African Americans, from some women, from Hispanics. He won Florida. So, Ryan, in terms of future picks, what do you think he should do?
He has a very hard balancing act. He needs to find outsiders as well as insiders. He needs to find people who want to reform Washington as well as part of Washington and make those reforms possible. I think he's doing a very good job right now. I would like to see him expand and even reach out to some Democrats possibly.
And Atima, in terms of future picks?
Yeah, I would definitely agree. That would be very helpful for him to reach out to Democrats. Tulsi Gabbard is obviously, I think, a good choice, especially in the veterans and foreign policy. There are some folks who are probably in the current administration who are outgoing, who would be good, whether it be in defense or national security, who definitely understand and can lend sort of an expertise there. So I think him reaching across the aisle, him building a lot more in the cabinet in the way sort of Obama did, in a way sort of I don't recall if Bush did or not, but I do know that you know, with LaHood and other defense people he had, Republicans in his administration, I think Trump can do a similar vein.
Tima, thank you so much for joining us. Ryan as well, we appreciate your insight.